All right, so for today, we are going to focus on everything above the horizon line in our picture that we have left. And if you didn't finish painting below, that's okay. You can finish that at the end, but we don't want this to be wet while we work up here. So we're gonna be using our patterns again. So we have our shape patterns, we have our line patterns, and we're gonna be decorating the things that are left in our picture. Now, there's a couple of spots that you can actually color in, and you can make a color pattern with these spots. And that is if you have windows or doors on your building, those things you can color in. So I'm gonna start with those first. So when we color in, we wanna make sure we're doing our best coloring inside the lines, that we're coloring the whole space, and that we're choosing colors that make sense. So for this type of coloring, a lot of different colors make sense because we noticed in the artwork that we looked at that it was very bright and rainbow colored. So I'm gonna use orange here and then pink here. I think I wanna make my barn red. I always think of a barn as being red. So I'm not gonna decorate my barn with red because I'm gonna use red paint when I get to the painting step. All right, so I made a color pattern, pink, orange, pink, orange. And I can do the same thing. I could use different colors or the same colors in the window above. I think I'm gonna do light green, dark green in the window above. All right, so now I'm gonna decorate with a pattern on the barn. So I always like to do stripes on the barn because then it looks like it's made out of wood boards. So I think I am gonna use, pink again to make my stripes because I know I'm gonna paint it red. So I'm gonna make some stripes. And I'm not doing the roof with these because the roof should be something different. So I'm just doing the walls or the sides of the barn. All right, so when I get to the roof, I'm gonna switch colors. I think I'm gonna use yellow here on the front of the roof. I'm gonna do a triangle pattern where it gets smaller and smaller. And then on the side of the roof over here, I think I'm gonna use purple. I'm gonna do stripes in a different direction. Like that. All right, so now my barn is decorated. So now I can do something with the silo. I could do the same pattern but change colors in each section of it. I always like to do this one in rainbow order. So I'm gonna do circles. So red circles, and then orange circles, and then yellow circles, whoops. And then green circles. It looks like I'm gonna have room just for blue. I won't have room for purple, but that's okay. All right, so there I've got the silo decorated. So then I might go over here to the tree and I can decorate the tree. I really think I'll do kind of a branched pattern. So I'm using brown here. I'm gonna do these branches that look like they're sticking out from the middle. Swirls could also make a nice branch pattern, or you can make it look like an apple tree and put some red circles on it, or you can put little flowers on it, make it look like a flower tree. The tree trunk, I'm gonna use orange here. I'm gonna do a zigzag, so it kind of looks like triangles on the tree trunk. And then I've got the hills here, so maybe I'll do dark blue for the pattern. I'm gonna make it kind of look like a little grass. And the reason I didn't use green here is because I want to paint them green. So I'm making little short lines. And just remember, when you're making a pattern, it needs to fill the space up. So just doing like 4, that's not enough to be a pattern to fill that space. You really got to squeeze everything in so it's nice and close together. And the fence is see-through, so you can actually see through the fence to the hill behind it. So I'm going to put some of that pattern in there as well. And then I have one more thing here. I can add in some decorations. So maybe I will do some red, do red swirls inside my sun. Now, if you want to, you can also add a pattern in the sky. So I didn't do any invisible white patterns in here. I could use white here and then it'll pop out when I paint over it, kind of like it did down here. But I think you can also draw on top of the paint on the sky as well. So I'm gonna do some kind of wind swirls, make it look like it's a really windy day. All right, so now that my patterns are done and I've decorated and I've colored the windows and doors, I am ready to finish painting. All right, so I have my paint set, my brush, my water cup, and since this is a rainbow color tray, I'm gonna add black too. So when you paint, just a couple of reminders, make sure you have water on your brush because the trick doesn't work without it. When you swirl in the paint, I'm gonna start with my barn here. Make sure you swirl about 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then very important, just like below, we wanna outline our space first. So I'm actually gonna do the whole barn. Get a little more paint here. I'm gonna do the whole front and side of the barn because, oops, I'm gonna probably wipe that away with my finger. I can paint over all of that with red. So when I'm painting, make sure you're gentle and you use a lot of water when you're doing this. If you don't use the water, just the paint will actually cover up the oil pastel. The watercolor resist trick happens because of the water. So if you're not using water, it's not gonna work as well. And if you're rubbing hard, it's gonna smear the oil pastel and it won't work as well. So be very gentle. Don't press hard with your brush. Make sure you're using enough water. And really make sure you're filling in the space. And before you switch colors, do a white spot check. So I see some white spots down there. I'm gonna cover over. I found one there. I think we're good. There's a little one right there. Maybe a couple up here. There we go. Okay, so there's my barn. So now, I'm not gonna paint this part red because that's a different area. So I'm gonna choose a different color for that spot. So maybe I'll do the black here on the yellow. So I'm gonna get the black, and just like before, I'm gonna outline first. Really careful. And then fill in the middle. You can see the watercolor resists really well with this one. All right, I'm gonna clean my brush really well. And then maybe I'll paint the side of the roof blue. Dark blue. So outline first and then fill in the middle, okay? Now, my barn's done, but I still have my silo and I can paint it all one color. Maybe I'll use this magenta. So I'm gonna fill it in with that magenta there. I outline first. Oh, running out of paint. Water first, a little bit more paint. And then once I've done that, then and fill in the middle. All right, oh, better do my white spot check. I see a couple right there on the edge. Okay, so now I can use that green that I mentioned I wanted to use for my hills. So I'm gonna outline first and then fill in the middle. Get a little bit more paint again. Outline first, fill in the little bit of the middle. And come over here and do the same thing. And then I have the tree left and the sun left. All right, so for the tree, maybe I will use orange to kind of make it look like a fall tree. So I'm gonna swirl in the orange 8 times. I'm gonna outline just the top of the tree. I don't want the trunk to be the same color. The trunk's actually gonna be a different color because that makes sense. Real trees are not all one color. All right, so there's the top. Do my white spot check. And then I think I'm gonna use the black again for the tree trunk. So I'm gonna outline with just a little bit of paint. Now, these small spaces, if you put too much paint in them, sometimes they get a puddle. And then that puddle won't stay in the lines. If that happens, you can ball up a little tissue and you can kind of soak it up so that it doesn't get outside the lines. But if you don't use a lot of water, if you take and kind of wipe off the water so you don't have a lot, then it'll stay inside the lines. Now, I can't use my yellow because I have really, really dirty water right now. So I think I'm gonna just go ahead and make my sun orange because I'm thinking of it as going down, so it's kind of like a sunset color. So I'm gonna outline that sun and then fill it in. All right, and do my white spot check. One more time, make sure there's no white spots, and when I'm finished, this goes on the drying rack.